In June 2014, a family paid over $1.3 million for their dream home in a quiet New Jersey suburb. Before they could even move in, someone started sending them letters. The letters made it clear the house had never really belonged to them at all. Derek and Maria Broaddus had been searching for the right family home for months, eventually settling on a 6-bedroom colonial house on Boulevard Street in Westfield, New Jersey, a peaceful, affluent town roughly 30 miles outside New York City. The house had every feature they wanted, on a quiet, tree-lined street, exactly the kind of neighborhood they hoped to raise their 3 young children in. Just days after closing on the house, before the family had even begun moving their belongings inside, Maria checked their new mailbox and found a letter addressed simply to the new owner. The letter's contents were immediately unsettling. The author claimed to have been watching the house for decades, referring to it by name as though it were a living entity, requiring what the letter called fresh blood. The writer asked pointed, specific questions about the family's 3 children, referring to them not by name, but by physical descriptions accurate enough to suggest the author had personally observed them during their earlier house visits, despite the family never having met anyone matching that description during their limited time at the property before closing. The letter was signed only as The Watcher. Derek and Maria initially assumed this was some kind of cruel prank, perhaps connected to a jealous neighbor or a disgruntled party involved in the sale. They contacted the local police, who opened an investigation, though with no immediate leads or physical evidence connecting the letter to any specific individual. 10 days later, a second letter arrived. This letter was significantly more specific and disturbing than the first. The author claimed direct, ongoing surveillance of the house's construction and renovation, correctly describing changes the previous owners had made to specific rooms, details that would have been difficult for a casual observer to know without either living nearby for an extended period or having some form of consistent access to the property's history. The letter specifically referenced the family's children again, describing them by their approximate ages and physical characteristics with unsettling accuracy, and posed a chilling rhetorical question about which child's bedroom directly faced the street, information that would require deliberate observation of the house's interior layout to know with such specificity. The family, now seriously alarmed, delayed their move-in date and increased communication with local police, though investigators still had no concrete leads pointing toward any specific suspect. A third letter arrived shortly after, escalating the tone even further, this time directly referencing the family by name for the first time, along with details about their daily movements around the property during their brief visits, further reinforcing that whoever was writing these letters had genuine, ongoing physical proximity to observe the family in real time, rather than relying on publicly available records alone. Over the following months, the Broaddus family received several additional letters, each one continuing the same unsettling pattern of intimate knowledge combined with a menacing, possessive tone toward the house itself, repeatedly suggesting that the property belonged to the Watcher in some fundamental, permanent sense that transcended any legal ownership or sale. Terrified for their children's safety, and unable to comfortably move into a home under this level of ongoing psychological threat, the Broaddus family made the difficult decision never to actually live in the house at all, despite having already paid the full purchase price. They rented the property out to tenants instead, while continuing to pursue both a police investigation and, eventually, a civil lawsuit against the previous owners, alleging that the sellers had known about at least one prior letter received before the sale and had failed to disclose this information during the purchase process. Local police, working alongside investigators, pursued numerous leads over the following years. DNA testing was conducted on the letters and envelopes, though results were inconclusive in definitively identifying a specific suspect. Handwriting analysis was performed, comparing the letters against writing samples from numerous persons of interest throughout the neighborhood, including former residents of the street and individuals with previous documented connections to the property, without producing a confirmed match. Several individuals living on the same street were investigated at different points due to behavioral patterns, or personal circumstances that raised initial suspicion among investigators, though in each case, sufficient evidence to formally charge anyone was never obtained, and each individual was eventually cleared, or the investigation into them quietly discontinued without public explanation. The case drew significant national and international media attention after details became public through the ensuing civil lawsuit, with the story eventually inspiring both a best-selling nonfiction book and later a fictionalized television adaptation exploring the psychological toll the situation took on the family throughout this period. The Broaddus family ultimately sold the house in 2019 at a significant financial loss compared to their original purchase price, 5 years after the ordeal began, having never spent a single night living in the home they had purchased specifically to raise their children in. To this day, the watcher has never been definitively identified. No arrest has ever been made in connection with the letters. Investigators have never publicly confirmed a primary suspect, and the case technically remains open with local New Jersey authorities, despite years of investigation, DNA analysis, and extensive media scrutiny. Some investigators and independent researchers who have studied the case believe the author was likely someone with genuine long-term personal connection to the specific house itself, potentially a former resident or someone with an unusually intense, unresolved emotional attachment to the property that predates the Broaddus family's purchase entirely. Others maintain the letters may have originated from someone living in close proximity on the same street, possessing intimate ongoing knowledge of the family's movements that would be extremely difficult to obtain from any significant distance. The house itself, now owned by new residents entirely unconnected to the original case, has received no further letters since the Broaddus family's departure, according to public records and subsequent reporting, though this detail itself has led to further speculation about whether the original letters were specifically, personally targeted at the Broaddus family themselves, rather than simply directed at whoever happened to occupy that particular address at any given time. If this story unsettled you, imagine buying your dream home, only to receive a letter making it clear someone had been watching your family long before you ever arrived, and would continue doing so for as long as you stayed. If you want more real unsolved mysteries like this one, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. New stories are coming every week, and this case is far from the strangest one still to come.